Hi and welcome to CROW, Centre for Rehabilitation of Wildlife. CROW is South Africa's oldest wildlife rehabilitation centre. We're actually turning 42 in August this year, and we rescue, rehabilitate and release all wildlife throughout the whole of KZN. So all of your species, including your TOPS threatened or protected mammal species or terrestrial species, and all your TOPS marine species. So we were started in 1977 by Isolde Mallet in a garage when she realised the need for wildlife rehabilitation in an area such as Durban, which had expanding populations and development. In 1980 we moved onto the property that we currently reside in, and we've been here for the last 42 years. We also are one of the largest wildlife rehabilitation centres in the country. We treat between 3,000 and 4,000 indigenous wildlife every year, and we cover the whole of KwaZulu-Natal. So back in the day, we've had animals between then and now ranging from lions, we've had rhinos, we've had crocodiles, we've had snakes, we've had all sorts of wildlife, including some of your larger game species. So I'm going to take you on a brief tour. We'll see the different enclosures, how the facility is set up. We're on a 4-hectare property here in Yellowwood Park, Durban, and we've got our area divided into different blocks. So this is A block and B block, and then it goes C, D, E, F alphabetically all the way down to the bottom of the property, where we house different species in different areas. So we'll take you for a tour. We'll start off in our A block over here, where we start off with our really small baby tortoises. So these guys have come in, either been ex-pets or been confiscated, because in South Africa you're not actually allowed to keep tortoises without permits. And if you would like to ever keep a tortoise, it's always good to do as much homework as possible. It is easy to get permits, but make sure that you get the paperwork right. So we take them outside because they actually need UVA, UVB lighting, so natural sunlight, in order to synthesize the calcium in their diet to create nice, strong, healthy bones and shells. If they don't get that, they get what we call tense syndrome, and that's where the shell becomes soft and fragile. So you can see we've got some welded mesh. They've got a shaded spot and a sunny spot. There's some really tiny little guys in the corner there. And obviously tortoises live for a ripe old age, over 80 years old. So if you are ever looking to adopt a tortoise from a reputable place, then make sure that you know that it's a long-term commitment. Then we'll head through this side. On our right-hand side, we've got our aviaries. So these are for our garden variety birds. Any of your smaller bird species will, after being moved out of baby room, once they're old enough to start flying, we'll move them out here for the final phase of their rehabilitation and then final eventual release. So you'll see we've got some Egyptian geese over here, and these guys obviously came in as a bit older, which is why there's a few of them in this enclosure. And then we've got our younger waterfowl over here. These guys, we've just actually revamped these ponds, thanks to a member of public who volunteered his time to make sure that all our ponds are waterproofed again. And you can see what we've got here for them to eat is we've got some floating duck pellets in there, and then those small little water bowls that are in there are fresh water, but we also put grass. That's part of the enrichment to help stimulate them to get some natural diet as well. So this is our ICU block over here, and this enclosure over here has got some of our baby mongoose in it. You can see there's a heat light in that indoor area, and then they've got the outdoor area which we filled with natural vegetation, trying to make it as natural as possible for them. And this will be the intermediate stage for these mongoose before they move down to the larger enclosures. A meerkat came in the other day, unfortunately an ex-pet, and she's in that final enclosure at the back there. Meerkats don't occur here in KZN, so we are just keeping her here temporarily, and then she's going to be moving up to another rehabilitation centre, and that's where she will then go into another troop and hopefully be unhabituated. So once again, it's very important to know that you can't keep wildlife in South Africa without permits. CROW is an accredited facility with the NSPCA, and so when they do confiscate wildlife, or if they have wildlife injured or come into them, they will then bring the animals through to us for the rehabilitation, or we'll go and collect from the SPCAs. So this is our administrative block and our clinic area. We've got our operation room up there, we've got our baby bird rooms. At the top left hand side is our baby primate nursery, and also our offices where we work from. So if members of the public do bring animals through to us, They head up the stairs, go into our reception. Our receptionist will then take them through to the back, admit the animals with the clinic nurses, and then we'll assess the animals to see if they do need any further treatment or if they can go straight into our rehabilitation program. Animals that do need x-rays, etc., we don't have a vet on site, but we do have a vet that's been contracted with us for the last 23 years. And so if there are any surgeries, medication needed that our nurses aren't able to administer, we'll then take the animals up to our vet and then bring them back once they've had their treatments.
Yeah, my days start off relatively the same, but generally it starts off with me coming up to my primates and just feeding everyone, cleaning all the cages and that sort of thing, and just doing health checkups, making sure everybody's well and drinking and eating properly. And then generally I start cleaning up enclosures and just making sure that there's enough enrichment for the monkeys. So yeah, that's also a part of my day, and then obviously the rescues is another part of that. So there are a lot of specifically monkey rescues around the beginning of August, September, because that's generally when bulls are fighting with each other, and then again now the bulls are fighting again for the next breeding season. So they're all starting to mate again. So but there's generally a constant flow of monkeys coming in for a whole multitude of reasons, be it being hit by cars, attacked by dogs, injured by something. There's a lot of different reasons why monkeys are coming in. The vervets are quite a large department at Crow. It's the largest mammal department, so we do have a lot of monkeys here at the moment. If I'm not mistaken, I think we've got like 120 odd monkeys on property at the moment. That's including the babies that are at the top.
So just to my left over here, as we walk down the main strip of Crow, you've got our baboon enclosures. Our last release was actually in February 2019, where we released a large troop. And it is about a 6-year program to build the troop structures and get them ready for release. So we then managed to get hold of Riverside, which is a primate rehabilitation center in Limpopo province. And we took the decision that we will still admit baboons here at Crow, but we're not going to hold them for the full rehabilitation program. So every 6 months or so, if baboons do come in, they'll be held in these enclosures, and then we'll move them up to Limpopo. And then on my right hand side here, we've got the last phase of our smaller mammals enclosures. So we do have our mongoose enclosures. It's empty at the moment, so we are busy revamping the whole mongoose enclosure setup. That hasn't been done for about 15 years, so we're getting new wire mesh on everything, just making sure that everything's up to standard. And then in the center is a larger enclosure. We've had some baboons, some young baboons in there in the past. We've had some water mongoose. We've had a few different species, some monkeys. But at the moment that's also empty. And Crow's philosophy, the best cage is an empty cage. It's great when our cages are empty. We do at the moment have a side striped jackal in there, so we won't be going in there just because they are easily habituated, and we want to try and keep as much distance between people and them as possible. So we want to try and limit the amount of exposure that these animals have to humans. We've also got some of our last year's baby monkeys, vervet monkeys, in the enclosure in the far right hand corner. Also an animal that we try to limit interaction as much as possible. Alright, so we're moving down from G block to H block over here. We'll go in there and just have a peek through some of the holes. To our right we've got our flight aviary. Unfortunately it started to unravel. They'll go into that massive aviary there. It's about 46 meters by 5 meters wide by 5 meters high, and they'll be able to strengthen their wings and get ready for the rewilding. And then the enclosure in the center is where it's the intermediate stage for our antelope. At the moment we do have a young zebra in there, as well as a few antelope.
Zebra that we've got in, our virtual zebra, came in when he was 5 days old. The reason he came in is because his mother had a prolapse when she gave birth. The vet came in and fixed the prolapse, but unfortunately 5 days later they found that she had prolapsed again between those 5 days, and unfortunately it got infected at the site, so they had to make a call on the mother. So when he was 5 days old he was brought through to the center, and he's been here ever since for the last 2 months. We put up to the public, what would you like to name him? So his name is Perseverance, but we call him Percy for short. His end story will be that he's going to go up to a rehab center in Limpopo, and he'll get joined to other babies there, and they'll create their own herd, and then they'll get released from there.
So you'll see we've created a little ramp over here for now for the zebra. So when we move her from this intermediate size enclosure to the larger antelope enclosure, she'll be able to actually be led up here blindfolded on a lead to be able to be walked across. You don't want to stress the animals out too much by trying to have to capture them, put them in a box. So we do have two different stalks in here at the moment. We've got the woolly neck stalk, which is in our number 2 enclosure, and then we've got the black stalk, which is on the further enclosure. Now, black stalks don't actually occur in the area, so it is very strange to have this species rock up here in South Africa. So we're hoping that once she's ready to release, it'll be at the migration point, and she'll be able to move back to the areas where they actually do occur. So just to my right over here, we've developed a little man-made wetland area. Crow used to be the actual old waterworks, and so all of these different blocks that we're talking about were actually the old water holding blocks. Unfortunately, our wetland did have an issue with kariba weed and water lettuce, which is a highly invasive aquatic plant species. And so our conservancy, together with some of our volunteers, have been working to try and remove. You'll see half of it's been removed there and the other half is still covered. But over the next week or two, we'll be able to get that out. We've also introduced a biological control mechanism, which is a weevil that targets those specific species, different species of weevil for each of the different species of alien invasive plants. And yeah, it's an area for education to teach learners and scholars the importance of our wetlands. So our learners will be able to go through, have a look at the different bird species that they've got in there, and learn about the importance of our wetland ecosystems. You can also see by our education center, which we'll go into shortly, we do have a rainwater harvesting system, which also forms part of our education program, where we teach kids about the importance of sustainability. We've got solar panels on our clinic buildings, and we've got our rainwater harvesting tanks throughout the property as well. And then we've also got an organic vegetable garden at the back, which we've developed also to form part of that education of sustainability to that young people. Then just on our left-hand side here, we've got our larger antelope enclosure. So 2 bushbuck have just been moved in here recently. And this is the final stage of the rehabilitation. This is once they're weaned off bottles, they're eating solid foods, they're large enough, they'll go in here for the final phase of their rehabilitation. So we'll have a peek over and just see if we can see any of them walking around. Alright, and then to our left, just after that camp, is our bush pig enclosure. That's actually empty at the moment. We don't have any bush pig in there, which is a good opportunity for us to go in and tackle some of those invasive species that just spread like wildfire in the area. Right at the back of the property there, you'll see those fences. We've got our vegetable garden to the far right, where one of our volunteers is walking. To the left there, just behind that building, is our jackal enclosure. So most of your small carnivores will go into that enclosure. And then to the far left of that is our larger primate enclosure. So that's for your adult vervet monkeys for the last 2 years or so of the rehabilitation program. It does take 3 to 4 years for a rehabilitation program with primates, just because of the fact that you have to raise them from babies, get them to have different troop structures, different age groups to be able to defend the troop once they are released. So it's about 3 to 4 years, and we're very happy to say that we've got another troop being released in about a month or two's time. We're just waiting for those permits to come through, and they'll go out into a protected area up in Zululand, where they'll have no worries about being around people, and they'll just have a natural environment to be able to live the rest of their lives. And we'll head through to our education center. You'll see some of the piles here. Those are the kariba weed and the water lettuce that we pulled out. We're just drying them up a bit, and then we'll put them into our composting system. So that's the way that you have to dispose of them, which is why they are lying in piles here at the moment. If you do notice any long grass or unkept areas while we've been doing this walk, especially around the zebra area, you would have noticed, that is because we are not able to cut long grass and things with weed eaters, things like that, because it creates a lot of noise. So certain areas we have to leave for a little while until the animals move off into the new enclosures, and then we can go in and maintain those grounds. So this is our education center, and since we opened it up about 7 years ago, we've actually had over 160,000 learners through Crow's doors, which we'll have a look at now. There's capacity for 60 people, and obviously with COVID regulations that's been reduced. and our school program has been quite slow, but now that COVID regulations are starting to ease up a little bit, schools are going back to normal. We will actually be appointing a new education officer from the 1st of February, and we're looking forward to a new year with a lot of education. Really important. Education is the key to conservation. Okay, so welcome to Crow's Education Centre here in Yellowwood Park. As we enter, you'll see we've got some of our history boards just explaining the history of Crow, which was established in his Millet's garage in 1977, but we have became official on this property in 1980. We've also got a television screen here. We've got cameras in our enclosures. So at Crow we try to make sure that there's no human interaction with the animals, but for educational purposes we place cameras in the enclosure so that the kids who come here to learn about Crow, to learn about wildlife, can actually see the animals in their enclosures. So we've got some photographs from our old history, and then we turn to our left here. Then just in front of me we've got our biography, which has got drawers filled with different animal bones and things like that, as part of the education. And then many different interpretation boards here. So we've got a board here which discusses injuries, displacements, and orphaned animals, which are the animals that come into Crow. Illegal pet trade, urban development, and how that affects conservation. And then we've got a boardwalk up here with the old interpretation style. We've got some spoor, so that kids can learn about the different spoor and dung samples to show the children, if they're in the bush, how to recognize different animals' spoor and dung. And then we've got different boards talking about living together. We also have the water ecosystem, where we talk about water and the importance of wetlands. And then our biodiversity crisis. There's an example of two of the animals that went through our rehabilitation program, and a bit of information about the species as well. And just a few more information boards. This one over here is really interesting. This is x-rays of some of the patients that have come through Crow. You can see birds with hooks lodged in their stomachs. You can see some splints for broken wings that we've done. You can see the primates in particular. All three pictures here have got pellets in them. And one of the saddest ones is this female vervet monkey with a baby in her womb that's actually, the baby has a pellet lodged in its head. About 90% of the monkeys that come through to us that are x-rayed have got pellets in them, whether they came in for that injury or if it was an old injury that's healed up. There's just so many people unfortunately shooting monkeys in our urban areas, and that all stems back to people feeding and habituating the animals in our urban environments. So Crow definitely speaks about the importance of not feeding monkeys. There is so much natural food out there for them. If you do want to try and make a better environment for them, try to plant edible plants outside in the green corridors so that the monkeys will get their natural food foraged from the wild. They don't need supplement feeding, and supplement feeding is actually causing more problems with the health of the monkeys. There is a research project going on at the moment that links, they're still working on it, but it links feeding bad food items to monkeys causing abortions and other pregnancy issues. If you do come across an injured or orphaned animal, be sure to give us a call if you're within KZN. If you are from another province, you can also give us a call, and we're part of a CORE, which is the Coalition for Rehabilitation Expertise, and we'll be able to link you with somebody in your province to be able to assist. Now, there are 3 S's when it comes to wildlife rehabilitation rescuing. It's be sure, make sure that that animal actually does need to be rescued. A lot of times, it's things like antelope. The mothers will leave their babies while they go off to forage, and they'll come back to feed their babies. So
look at that animal, monitor that animal for a little while. Make sure that mom hasn't come back to look after her baby. If it really is orphaned, then give us a call, and then the next step is to make sure that you're safe. A number of these animals can be quite dangerous, especially things like large monitor lizards, jackals, other animals. So rather be safe. Make sure to get an expert such as ourselves in with the correct equipment to be able to actually capture that animal. Now, if it's something like a small baby bird that's fallen out of a nest, the next one is to reduce stress. So make sure that you collect that little bird, put it in a small, dark cardboard box with some ventilation holes or a dark environment, warm, dark, and quiet, just to make sure that we reduce stress as much as possible while we drive out to rescue that animal, or if you're bringing it through to us. So yeah, then you can bring it through to us at Crow, and we'll be able to monitor it, treat it if treatment is needed, and then put it through our rehabilitation program and to the eventual best part of our job, which is the release. And then we've got our main stage area, which is where we conduct all our presentations. We've got our projector board screen there where we'll play live footage of the animals as well as all our presentations. Okay, so guys, it's really important if you want to look after your environment and your habitat around us and the animals that reside in our urban areas, there's a number of simple things to do. For example, with the monkeys, we can put monkey-proof bin clips on our green municipal bins to stop them from rubbishing in our bins. We can stop feeding monkeys. Unfortunately, there was a research project done that for every one household feeding monkeys, within 5 households of that one household, somebody's actually shooting the monkeys. So the monkeys can't differentiate between those people feeding them and those people out there to harm them.
I would advise any person not to feed monkeys, because that just encourages them to come through to you because it's an easy meal and they're a smart animal. And it's just going to aggravate a bigger issue, because your next door neighbor who doesn't feel the same way is then going to be shooting at that monkey, and then we start the whole process again. So it's a very difficult situation, and as nice as it feels to be giving food to an animal, it's not advisable for that reason.
There's also dietary requirements when it comes to animals, and if they're fed the wrong dietary requirements, they can end up causing more harm than good. There's a research project going on at the moment with UKZN where they're linking feeding of the incorrect diets to monkeys causing issues with pregnancies and birth.
Monkeys are a very, very important species in the wild. They are so important for seed dispersal, and we've got such amazing forest vegetation down here on the coast. And the only way some of these trees can propagate is and reproduce is through monkeys. So you don't have those monkeys, you don't have forests coming up, and you don't have birds, and you don't have everything else, and the fruit and the wood and all of that kind of stuff. So they are an incredibly important animal.
You can also do things like planting indigenous plants around your areas, planting indigenous plants in green belts and other edible plants in green belts where the animals can forage for themselves. Making sure that when you take your dogs out for a walk, keep them on a lead so that they don't go out and chase our wildlife. And yeah, just in general, if you want to become more sustainable, grow your own vegetables at home, don't use pesticides, don't use herbicides. All those things end up in our food chains down the way, and it causes more harm to our environment. So if you can, go solar, try and support green energy as much as possible. It's really important, and those are some of the steps you can take in an urban environment to help with our environments.
And you can look at it from just your day-to-day life, what you're doing every day with how much litter you're producing, what kind of products you're purchasing, who you're purchasing your products from. That's just a general conservation mindset that everybody should adopt. You should just be more conscious of who you're supporting, what you're purchasing, and that sort of thing.
You can also help out other organizations that are conserving our wildlife. In this day and age, it is very tough. We're all struggling financially and economically, but if you do have that little bit of extra that you can put towards a conservation project and help them to help the environment in other ways.
Nature in this part of the world is just phenomenal, and you're watching things dying around you because of humans. At the end of the day, we are causing their demise and our own demise, and there's still a chance for us to make a difference. That we still have that ability. We this smart, sentient, intelligent being, and we continue to, kill at the rate that we're doing. And that's the point I'm trying to make. It's like we have this amazing resource around us that we can actually survive off of, just like everything else does. So just to be conscious and aware of that, and to appreciate it more, and think about the next thing, you know, not just about number one.
So again, part of our education program, we've just started off setting up an aquaponics system. So we are going to pave this whole area that's been cut. You can see some filter systems in the back there. We do have tilapia in these systems at the moment. And aquaponics is basically using fish for farming. So we will be, once the concrete's in, we'll be putting our beds in. So a lot of these baths that you can see, those bars in the back there will be filled with pebbles. The water then goes from the filtration systems into the beds, that then the nutrients from the fish feed the plants clean the water, and then it gets pumped out of those beds back into our sump over there, and then clean water pumped back to the fish again, so that the plants convert the nitrites to nitrates, and help clean the water. So that's the next phase of our project. We've just started on this one, thanks to one of our sponsors, Atlas Towers, for the funding. And we'll be able to once again produce our own food here. We do go through around about 2 bucky loads of fruit and vegetables every week. So we're trying through our organic garden and through this aquaponics system to be able to supplement that. Some of our animals also eat fish, so we're farming fish, producing fish, so we're getting 2 benefits out of one. And then just past this, part of our education program is our tortoise camps. Unfortunately, the tortoises are the only species of animals that we are not allowed to release. That's due to genetic contamination. So tortoises are not allowed to be released back into the wild. There is a research program going on with vits at the moment, which will hopefully allow us, through DNA sampling, to in the future possibly release these animals. But we've got our tortoise female camp to the left here, which we'll go into, and our male camp on the right. They are separated because you're also not allowed to breed tortoises in captivity. So it's munch time now, that's why they're all down at the bottom here. And we feed them a variety of different items. So there's a variety of vegetables that we'll feed them. They've got some branches, hibiscus branches in there, and we try and mix up their diet as much as possible. And all of these tortoises have either been rescued or handed over to us, and we then do we adopt them out with the correct paperwork and permits, and we'll make sure to inspect properties before any permits are issued or animals are handed over. You can see a lot of them have had bad issues in the past due to poor husbandry. This guy over here, we think maybe got caught in a felt fire or something, and that's why the shell is really healed over nicely, but you can see the damage that was caused in the past.
Yes.
So Crow is a non-profit organization. We rely on donations from the public to keep our doors open. If you'd like to contribute or make a donation, you can always visit our website, www.crowkzn.co.za, to find out other ways to give. You can volunteer your time, sponsor an animal, buy some of our merchandise, make a donation, or join our 1100 Club. All your support is highly appreciated. It's because of you that we are open for 42 years.